steadily it rises. Public preference for Lincoln Continental as the symbol for today's luxury motoring.
Hey, it's Jason ODB, the Lincoln Addict, and we're back with another video. I'm trying to basically do a few of these a week and talk about different things, but also mix it up a little bit with some shorter content. So what I'd like to do is follow up on the 64 Lincoln Continental Convertible that sold about a month ago, give or take. So this 1964 Lincoln Continental Convertible that you see I'm clicking on now, black interior, black paint, black top, so triple black, sold for $104,000. Now, that is a very, very strong price for a factory car that hasn't had some crazy restoration. Not going to say necessarily it's a record. We've seen cars tied to JFK and the Kennedy family and things like that go for more. Totally understand that. But, a car that's relatively stock for the most part. I did a review on this one, so I'll link to that video at the very end if you're interested or if you haven't watched it. But again, I'll sum it up this. It's a very, very strong price for a factory Lincoln, even for a convertible, but it reinforces that these cars, the prices do continue to go up, which I think is a good thing, and people want a certain thing. So why did this car sell for six figures? And that's what I want to talk about now. So one interesting thing is, as soon as this one ended, I posted on Lincoln Addict. So I've got Instagram and I've got Facebook, right? So typically those posts are going to be concurrent and very similar, if not the same, right? So they batch over. And the interesting thing was I posted this, and a day or two later, maybe a week later, this gentleman, Michael Hinman, he commented. And obviously, when I post cars like this, I'm not doing it to try to rile people up. I'm doing it because, one, I follow this stuff, and two, it's kind of like a public service announcement. It's like, hey, this car sold. If somebody's in the market for a car and they're watching this, or maybe they want to get one in 5 or 10 years, maybe they're learning some things. And I know that for a fact. I say maybe, but I've had people literally tell me, hey, thank you very much for some of the information that you've shared. It's helped me buy a car. A gal in California last September, she told me that from listening to the podcast and things. So I appreciate that. And then I had someone recently give me feedback and say, hey, I've been listening and whatnot. So this is more like a public service announcement. And it grew a little bit out of the fact that I get a lot of questions through social media. And unfortunately, I just don't have the time. And I don't mean this in a negative way, to like kind of get on the phone with folks and just bullshit a couple hours here and a couple hours there. I try to really value my time and spread it on a lot of things I like to do. But doing these videos, it's the way I look at it, it's kind of like a public service announcement. Again, some people have chimed in and they said, hey, this and that. I value all that feedback, so thank you. But when I posted this, anytime a car sells, for these higher numbers, you're going to have people immediately trigger and go, maybe they're going, I can't afford that, or I owned one 20 years ago, there's no way. And of course, this guy goes, I'm sorry, that car would never go for that price. It's great, but not for that money. And again, I think people, they're quick to want to comment. I mean, some of these people could be trolls, but basically when I commented back, I just said, hey, there's nothing to be sorry about. And, you're saying the car would never go for that. I'm telling you the car sold for that. It's just funny how people sometimes decipher a post, were they thinking that I'm saying, hey, this car's for sale? It says clearly on the image it's sold on that day, but whatever. But basically, you had other people chime in that most of the sentiment on this post was like, hey, you guys have no idea what you're talking about. Have you tried to restore a classic car and all of that? But this gentleman, Michael Hinman, he chimed in and he said, it was a lot to pay, LOL, but I had to pull the trigger. So I'm taking him for his word. I don't know this person, but I did end up tagging him, which I like to do on Instagram. And more than likely, he's the guy, based upon what he's saying, is that he bought this car. So, congrats. It's an awesome car. And what people have to remember is I worked a very long time in a customer service, operation, strategic type, position for many, many, many years. And we would often talk about, people that are trying to sell something, right? Or people that, want to buy something. A lot of times when people want something, they don't, if they've got the money, they don't look at it and say, they don't hee haw around about it a lot. Like if you're looking to go buy a new iPhone, you go to buy it, and you don't really care that it's going to either cost you $30 a month or that it's going to be a $2,000 purchase. Like, what you want and you go to buy it. And that's what I think people tend to think when they see these prices. They go in their head immediately, wow, I one can't afford that. It's dumb. Whoever bought it for that price is an idiot. These things roll through people's minds. Who knows what is going through their mind. But at the same time, what we all have to remember is that there's a lot of people out there. There's a ton of people that got way more money than I do. And when they want something, they're just going to buy it. So that's the interesting thing for me, because we post cars on social media and we get like no traction, and then you'll have someone like eBay or Bring a Trailer, get a lot of worldwide press, and you have a lot of people that go to these websites. So, anyways, back to the point. So this guy, he ends up buying this car, and the reason why, in my opinion, it sells for over 100 grand is a couple of things. Number one, it's a 64. People love the 64 years. They love 61, 2s, 3s, and 5s as well. But I'm telling you, Eazy-E, if you are into hip hop, he made the song Cruising Down the Street in My 6'4", 6'4". It's a thing that a lot of people, I'm telling you, in different, whether it's an Impala or a Lincoln or a VW, people hear 6'4" and they're like, oh, 64. That is a draw for some people, okay? I think that there's just, for me, they made a lot of beautiful cars in 64, bottom line. But also, it's black, and as I pointed out in the video prior, this car it didn't really have a lot done to it, like you see here. I don't think I even pointed out the steering wheel had been wrapped, like a nicer wrap than like a discount auto parts type wrap. But this car had a few things done, the carpet was done and whatnot. Now, granted, does that bring the price to 100 grand? Not necessarily to me on paper, but there was some money spent on this car. But also, if you knew how many people messaged me and said, hey, I'm looking for a Lincoln. Okay, what are you looking for? Well, I want a black. It's got to be black. It's got to be triple black. It's got to be 64. And that's what I want. Some people want modernized, resto mod. Some people want original style like this one. There's a lot of people in that funnel that want exactly what this car was. And that's why, in my opinion, it's sold for that much. Again, it's running and driving. The windows work for the most part. I'm going kind of from memory. But it literally, and I even said this in one of my comments, I think it like ticked all the boxes for people. Someone that may not be a Lincoln guy, but he knows these cars are awesome. Maybe saw it on Entourage. His buddy's got one, saw it in a movie, saw it in social media. Okay, social media is a huge influence on what people want, whether you realize that or not. So this person was like, boom, I want to have it. And that's what drove the price to 100 grand. So I would tell you, if you're looking to sell your car, even though Bring a Trailer, I don't partner with them at all. I just simply, they're kind of the go-to place now. They really are, in my opinion, a great place to sell a car because, again, they've got so many eyes on it. And this person bought what he wanted, and boom, that's the way it goes. So, the DSO was Atlanta. I think that, again, it wasn't necessarily a California dry climate, Arizona type car. But, if it did spend the majority of its existence in, let's say Atlanta or something like that, you just never know unless you see a lot of photos underneath it. We could tell this thing wasn't rusted out necessarily. But people that got money are going to go and jump at things like this. A quick story, a couple years ago, my buddy Tony Boss Bolin, he sold a gold, we called it gold bricks, why he had it, a gold 65. I kept wanting to say 64, but it was a 65 gold sedan. And he sold it for a very strong price, which he and I afterwards, I was like, man, you could have sold it for a little bit more. Let's just say, I think it sold for around 30 grand. I think it could have easily brought 35, and at that time, people would probably think you're crazy for selling it. But this car, like the leather looked like it had been sitting like that we took a time machine back and we walked into the dealership in 65 and the car was there. The AC, he charged it. The AC was ice cold. Um, it just was it was one of the nicest sedans I had seen that hadn't really been monkeyed with, so to speak. Nobody had really did anything to it. So again, there are some of those cars out there, and sometimes a car like that is going to command a higher price, and that's what this one did. This person that owned this car, he picked a good car. Triple black, 64 convertible, maintained it a little bit, so on and so forth, and did a little bit of work to it. Like I said, maintained it, and that's that. So in closing, to try to keep this video a little bit shorter, again, follow us on social media. What you can do is if you go out and search Lincoln Addict on Facebook or Instagram, I post a lot of different stuff, some different themed things you can see here, like with 4th of July. I'm constantly scouring the internet, but I've been doing that for probably 20 years. So I've got a vast collection of photos. I do give photo credit when I know the source or who took the photo, so I like to do that as well. But like, check this out. Like, this was unique. I've been sitting on this one a while. This was reportedly commissioned by Lincoln, technically a 62, but I think it was maybe titled a 62. Obviously you can see the 61 front end, but constantly anything that has to do with Lincoln, especially of the 60s, I post in social media, whether it be the sale prices, resto mods like this with the Coyote motor, custom cars, fully stock cars. I love them all. So I don't discriminate, so to speak, between, custom and factory original. Thank you so much for the support. Let me know what you guys think. I mean, do you really believe this car is a $100,000 car? Do you have a varying opinion? Maybe your opinion aligns with mine. Maybe you go, man, well, what about this? Maybe, you're coming up with something else that I'm not. But again, I think it checked all the boxes. Stay on the rise, y'all. Have a great week. Peace.